harnessed and focused on the benefits and rewards of a specific goal, can we light the fires of self-motivation and develop the kind of self-discipline that will help us achieve that goal. Dr. Pribram made a second significant discovery in his research into the brain and human behavior. He found that all of our actions are governed and driven by what he calls an image of achievement. That image of achievement is actually a mental blueprint for reaching a goal. It is made up of images rich in sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. And in the mind of a highly self-disciplined achiever, it serves as the source of emotional fuel that drives him to work long and hard to reach his goal. Wimbledon tennis champion Stan Smith reported that once he realized that he could compete with some of the world's best tennis players, he established a vision of himself becoming the #1 tennis player in the world. He imagined winning the Wimbledon title years before he actually achieved it. He saw himself receiving the trophy, dancing at the winner's ball. He felt the worldwide acclaim that would accompany his success. He used that vision as an emotional well from which to draw the necessary strength, persistence, and perseverance to spend thousands of hours in practice and competition, developing the skills and experience that would eventually see him to the realization of his dream. Have you ever heard someone say, "I wanted it so bad I could taste it"? That's the kind of stimulus that motivates the self-disciplined achiever. Not only can the achiever taste victory, he can see, smell, hear, and feel it too. After years of research, we now know that such deep, sensory-rich images are the actual language of the brain. Although it is actually far more complex, the brain can be compared to a computer. Computers, also referred to as hardware, can do nothing by themselves. They are simply the vehicles for programs called software that tell the computers what to do. Think of the brain as hardware and the imagination, images of achievement, as software. Images of achievement tell your brain what to think, which in turn tells you how to act. The right images can set in motion a chain of events that will lead you towards any kind of achievement you can imagine. Author Joe Himes describes watching a Taekwondo master named Young Tai Lee practicing blows against a straw-covered board. Lee pounded his fist again and again against the board, oblivious to the fact that his knuckles were bleeding. When Lee's practice was over, Himes asked him whether his hand hurt. Lee replied, "Not until just now, when I thought about it." When Himes looked astonished, Lee explained further, "When I was striking the Makawara board as you came in, my mind was on my home in Korea. Though I was standing here, I was seeing the mountains I knew as a youngster and the children I played with, hearing their laughter and my mother's voice. I was unaware of the pain in my hand." Lee then told a dramatic story of his own Taekwondo master, who once underwent a sinus operation with only his own concentration for an anesthetic. "How was that possible?" Himes asked. "Regulate your breathing," Lee replied. "Fix your eyes and mind on something else, perhaps a rock or a spot on the floor or ceiling. Concentrate on that object, savor it, taste it, give it color, and smell the dimension. Let it absorb all your thoughts and concentration, and the pain will diminish." If we replace the word object in Lee's description with the word goal, we have the perfect description of a sensory blueprint. Concentrate on that goal, savor it, taste it, give it color, and smell the dimension. Let it absorb your thoughts and concentration. This ability to use sensory images to marshal one's powerful sensory impulses toward a goal is the essence of self-discipline. We are all born with imagination. Self-disciplined achievers have learned to use it to achieve even the most seemingly impossible goals. The self-disciplined achiever begins the journey to success with imagination. He asks himself, "If I can have whatever I can imagine, what do I want? What is my purpose?" When he has defined that purpose, he uses his imagination to create a vision of achievement, a sensory-rich image that will evoke an emotional response so strong that he is driven to action to bring his vision to life. And when he has achieved that goal, he uses his vision to create new goals, for the self-disciplined achiever never stops. He has learned such a powerful method for becoming successful that the pleasure of succeeding has for him become life itself. The self-disciplined achiever also uses imagination to change his goal whenever necessary. As images evoke emotion, and emotion propels him to act, he gets closer and closer to his goal. And the closer he gets, the more his reality changes. When it changes in such a way as to make his original goal either impossible or undesirable, he changes that goal to fit his new reality. The self-disciplined achiever creates a feedback system that ensures that he will never give up, and he will ultimately achieve what he wants. This is where most people fall down. They're working towards a goal, and suddenly circumstances interfere with that goal. They get sidetracked. Then when they try to get back on course, it doesn't work. Because their original goal does not fit their new reality, they think they have failed, and they give up. In the same circumstances, the self-disciplined achiever uses his or her goal visualization as a reality check. If reality suddenly dictates that the original goal won't work, the goal must be altered to fit reality. The achiever has not failed. He or she has set a new course that will lead to success. Take someone who sets out to become an obstetrician. After 4 years of pre-med and 2 years of medical school, our self-disciplined achiever suddenly realizes that she's far more interested in becoming a neurologist. Should she drop out of medical school? Of course not. She'll simply switch her visual blueprint to another field of medicine and change her plans for where she'd like to intern after medical school. She doesn't think of herself as a failed obstetrician. She thinks of herself as a successful neurologist. Or take the businessman who wants to open up a retail store in his neighborhood. During the knowledge-gathering process of talking to other business owners, discussing loans and insurance with bank officers, and looking into buying franchises, he discovers that a retail operation won't really fit his particular talents or expectations. Instead, he realizes he's a perfect candidate for starting a direct marketing company. So he changes his vision and his direction to fit his new goal. For these people, the fire still burns, but the trial and error process of working towards their goal has led them in directions they wouldn't originally have thought to go in, and they will be successful because they're flexible enough to grow and change as their goals grow and change. The relationship between vision, self-motivation, and achievement can be condensed into an easy-to-understand 7-step formula for developing self-discipline. As we explain that formula, you can refer to your study guide and follow along as we talk about the 7 keys to self-discipline outlined in Diagram 3.1. The first step in developing the power of self-discipline is to create a purpose. You must define a cause to which you can wholeheartedly commit your time, resources, and energy. This cause points you in a direction. It gives you a reason for making the effort. It lights a small spark inside you that will soon begin to burn with emotion and drive. The second step is to find role models who have already achieved what you want to achieve. Study their life patterns, their methods and techniques for reaching their goals. Let their example inspire you, and realize that they are normal people just like you, but they are self-disciplined people. With the power of self-discipline, you can achieve as much as they have. With a firm purpose in mind and an exciting sense of possibility sparked by your role models, you'll find yourself developing a strong-willed emotional belief in your ability to succeed. The first small spark of hope is turning into a glowing ember of possibility. In the third step, you'll translate your feeling of possibility into a sensory-rich vision of success. At this point, with a vision rich in touch, taste, sight, smell, and sound in front of you, you'll make the leap from the possible, I think I can do it, to the heartfelt, I know I can do it. Your vision and your belief will fan the embers of conviction until they burst into a flame of emotion that incites you to action. This all-encompassing flame of emotion is the fourth step of the formula. It is what gives you the energy, the creative power, and the desire to single-mindedly see your vision through to its successful completion. Motion is the root word for emotion. The original meaning of the word emotion is, in fact, a moving, a stirring, an agitation, which is precisely what happens when belief in your goal catches fire. The fifth step in our formula is planning, the first bit of action inspired by your emotion. Through effective planning, you can identify and map out the steps you need to take in order to make your vision a reality. You'll figure out exactly what you need to do to accomplish your goal and how long it will take. And turning your vision into a concrete goal will further fuel the fires of emotion and action. Once your vision has become a plan, you must acquire the knowledge and skills necessary to implement that plan. This is the sixth step in the formula for developing self-discipline. No matter how difficult the learning process might be, you continue to draw inspiration and fortitude from your vision. And each time you master a skill, your confidence in your ability to achieve increases. The seventh and last step in our formula is what we call persistence and perseverance. Persistence is staying with your vision, seeing it through to its completion, no matter how long it takes or how difficult it is. Perseverance is persisting in spite of setbacks, disappointments, and hardship. Once you begin acting to achieve your goal, your drive to sustain the forward motion, to persist and persevere, is constantly fueled by the strength of your initial vision. And as you get nearer and nearer to accomplishment, the vision becomes more and more real. As your vision fuels reality, and reality fuels your vision, your drive to achieve begins working like a giant breeder reactor. You've put into motion a self-perpetuating spiral of vision, belief, emotion, motion, and reality. This formula for harnessing the essence of self-discipline will change your life. For the first time, science has given us the power to truly be able to change our own circumstances from the inside out, to understand what makes men and women overcome tremendous odds and obstacles to achieve greatness. For the first time, greatness is within the grasp of each of us. Through the understanding of the scientific principles that govern our thinking and behavior, we can, for the first time, program ourselves for success. In the next session, you'll begin to put the principles you've just learned into action. You'll learn a powerful sensory exercise which will let you determine your true goal. And once you've taken that vital first step, you can begin the exciting journey of action that will propel you towards the ultimate achievement of your heart's desire. At a recent workshop based on the neuropsychology of achievement, Cybervision President Stephen DeVore was asked an interesting question by a young corporate product manager. Mr. DeVore had been outlining the principles of goal setting when the product manager said, "You know, there's one problem I haven't yet solved. We talk about opportunities and goals, but there are so many opportunities to choose from, so many different directions we can go. How do you figure out exactly what you want to go for? How do you focus in on one choice among so many?" This session addresses that very problem, the problem of finding a purpose, and it isn't always easy. We live in a free society filled with opportunities for anyone who wants to take advantage of them. It's wonderful to have so many choices, but sometimes it makes choosing what you really want to do, your purpose, even more confusing than ever. Still, there are ways to narrow your choices down, and this session will show you how to do it. Through an exciting and powerful 4-point exercise, you're going to learn to pinpoint what it is you want most in life, out of all the things you may think you want. It will take some effort, some soul-searching, some creative thinking, and the outcome may surprise you. By the end of this session, you'll have chosen and defined what we call a macro purpose. The term macro means large or inclusive. Your macro purpose is equivalent to what creative people call the big idea. It's your main desire, your real purpose in life, your reward for hard work and effort. It's going to become your very reason for existing. Besides defining your macro purpose, in this session you're going to learn what micro purposes are and how they're used. Micro purposes are the stepping stones to your macro purpose. They consist of all the things you need to do to achieve your most important ambition. To help you thoroughly understand the concept of macro and micro purposes, Think back for a moment to your early years in school, when you first learned to do simple math. Remember what a struggle it was to understand how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide? Numbers seemed a mystery to you back then, and you may have thought you'd never learn how to perform the most basic math functions. At the time, learning math for you was a macro purpose, and all the elements of learning it were micro purposes. You had to learn to count, for one thing. You had to learn the symbols for addition, multiplication, subtraction, and division. And you probably had to memorize the multiplication tables. As an adult, math seems to hardly be important, but you couldn't balance your checkbook or manage your money without it. And if you're a stockbroker, accountant, retail store manager, or bank teller, among other things, math is an important part of your job. So math was a micro purpose that helped you launch your present career, your macro purpose. If your desire is to earn a college degree, a macro purpose, you must take a certain number of courses and amass a certain number of credits. Each course you take that counts toward your degree is a micro purpose. But if you want to be a doctor, earning a bachelor's degree by itself is only a micro purpose. You still have to attend and graduate from medical school and complete an internship, more micro purposes, before you can be licensed to practice medicine. As you can see, macro and micro purposes change according to your stage in life and what you want to accomplish at the moment. A teenager may enter college with no clear idea of what he or she wants to do except finish school, the macro purpose of the moment. But by the third year of school, that student may decide on a career that requires additional schooling and a period of apprenticeship. So finishing school becomes a micro purpose, a stepping stone to a rewarding career. But macro and micro purposes don't just apply to careers or lifelong goals. Setting a macro purpose and determining what micro purposes are necessary to achieve it is an excellent way to help you accomplish any goal, no matter how large or small. It's a logical and creative process that lets you organize your thoughts and actions to make your goal clearer, more rational, and easier to achieve. Just imagine for a moment that you're stranded alone in the wilderness on a freezing winter day. It's late afternoon, and there's no hope of rescue before the next morning. Somehow, you have to figure out a way to survive the bitter cold night, your macro purpose. Your micro purpose is keeping warm, and right off the bat you can think of 3 ways to do this. The first is to put on some more warm clothes, but you don't have any, so that choice is out. The second is to find shelter, but there's none in sight, and you don't have the time or the tools to build anything before nightfall. The third is to light a fire and keep it going through the night. Since the woods around you are filled with dry logs and kindling, this looks like a real possibility. But you don't have any matches, and as for rubbing 2 sticks together to start a fire, it never worked when you were a child, and you doubt that it will work now. There has to be another way. Looking around you for another solution to accomplishing your macro purpose, you notice a sliver of broken glass on the ground, and there's still enough sun left for you to be able to feel its warmth. Picking up the glass, you hold it so the sun's rays can penetrate its surface and focus on a dry stick of wood underneath. In 10 minutes, the stick is burning. But your ordeal isn't over. After the fire is lit, you have to gather enough logs and kindling to last through the night, another micro purpose. And then you have to force yourself to stay awake all or most of the night to make sure the fire doesn't go out. In the course of this harrowing experience, you've chosen a macro purpose, staying alive, and defined all the micro purposes that went into it. And if you succeeded in accomplishing all of the micro purposes, you also achieved your macro purpose. You survived. Defining your life's purpose and the steps you must take to achieve it may not be a life and death matter, but the principle works the same way. By the time this session is over, you'll have a macro purpose, a clear understanding of what to focus your energy, talent, and intelligence on. And you'll be able to light your own inner fire and feed it with a life-enriching, emotionally compelling purpose. And purpose, as we've noted, is the starting point from which self-discipline and achievement spring. Your first step in determining your macro purpose involves something everybody loves to do: play. You've already learned how important enjoying work is to the highly self-disciplined. To these achievers, Work and pleasure are synonymous. Now you're going to get a taste of how easily this can happen. For the next few minutes, I'm going to ask you to work and play as you engage in a process called limitless wishing. Start by closing your eyes and relaxing. Imagine that you're on a beautiful, deserted beach, walking barefoot in the sand. A soft breeze is keeping you cool, and you're enjoying the sound of the waves splashing rhythmically against the shore. As you stroll along the water's edge, you see an object in the near distance that's half buried in the wet sand. The waves splash over its surface, then recede, leaving it exposed to your curious eyes. You wonder what it is, and you start to walk a little faster so you can reach it before it's engulfed by the next wave. In a couple of minutes, you're standing over it, still not sure what it is. It's metal, somewhat round, and looks like an old lamp. You dig your fingers into the wet sand and pull it out. There's an inscription on the side of the object, but you can't read it clearly. You begin to rub some of the sand away from the oddly shaped letters. Suddenly, the lamp begins hissing, and it releases a cloud of what looks like steam or gas. Frightened, you drop it, but you continue to watch what the lamp is doing out of curiosity. Slowly, before your very eyes, the cloud begins to assume human shape, and soon you're looking up at the largest person you've ever seen. When it speaks, its voice is rich and kind, and its message is amazing. The genie thanks you for releasing him from hundreds of years of captivity inside the lamp, and according to the hospitality of his people, he offers you a reward for helping him. You have only to name 5 wishes, he says, and they will be granted. You can ask for anything, he tells you, as long as it is specific and humanly possible to achieve. At first, you refuse his offer, but as he continues urging you to accept, you begin to realize that no, you aren't dreaming, and yes, you really can have your 5 wishes. The possibilities start dancing before your eyes. Think long and hard about it. What are the things that will turn your life around and make you truly happy? What is it you secretly wish for, day in and day out, every day of your life? Take your time in deciding. This is too important for you to rush over. You may change your mind about your first choices after you've thought about it some more. When you do make your final selections, write each one down in the space provided on page 18 in your study guide. Start each wish with the term, I want, and write it in clear, specific language in the present tense. Turn your tape off now and decide what you will wish for. Welcome back. You now have in front of you a list of 5 wishes that your mind and heart told you are the most important things in life to you. Now, with a little imagination, you're going to create a scenario in which each of these wishes is fulfilled. This second step of our 4-part process is called wishful imagining. Close your eyes again and picture, in as much detail as possible, that your first wish has come true. If you wished for a great deal of money, imagine how your life has changed now that you've gotten it. Imagine the kind of house you're living in, the kind of car you're driving, the kind of clothes you're wearing, and what you're eating for breakfast and dinner. Maybe you've got a private plane or a swimming pool, a new career, new friends, or the same friends you have now, but with a new attitude toward you. Try to imagine that you're having dinner or drinks with your best friend, and you're explaining to that friend how your new life feels. This is a friend you trust completely, so you can say anything, positive or negative. Really imagine you're there, in the restaurant or bar being served food or drinks, with people talking around you and soft music in the background. Imagine what you look like. Are you younger, thinner, better dressed? Is your friend looking envious? Picture every single detail, down to the season, the location, the restaurant, the plates and glasses on the table. Repeat this process for every one of the 5 wishes you wrote down. And as you imagine each one coming true, pay attention to your emotional response. Are some wishes easier to imagine than others? Did one or two really make your pulse quicken with excitement? Are there any that felt particularly comfortable, as if you could just walk right into the scenario and feel at home? Which one seemed to draw you in like a magnet? There will be one wish that unmistakably evokes the greatest emotional response in you. That wish will be your final choice, and you'll be ready to proceed to the third step in defining your purpose, the step we call creative biography. When truly accomplished people pass away, they've generally left behind a legacy of achievement in art, finance, politics, or the social sciences. Biographers and historians then catalog those achievements so others can read about them for inspiration. For example, here's the entry on a man named Thomas Arnold from the Britannica Junior Encyclopedia. The text of this biography also appears in your study guide on page 18. The biography reads as follows: Thomas Arnold, 1795 to 1842. Some people are loved without being respected, and others respected without being loved. Arnold of Rugby was loved by many, respected and admired by everyone who knew him. Born at Cowes, Isle of Wight, this great headmaster and scholar was educated at Winchester and at Oxford in England, where he distinguished himself in classics and history. He left Oxford in 1819, and after 9 years of study and writing was elected headmaster of Rugby School. His powerful personality set its mark on the school from the first, and made it great in a new sense. He was very religious, and he inspired his boys with new and more serious ideals of scholarship and life. He found time, too, during the 14 years of his headmastership, to publish sermons, an edition of the Greek historian Thucydides, and a history of Rome. In 1841, he was appointed professor of modern history at Oxford, but died the following year. He was buried in Rugby Chapel, and his son Matthew wrote a beautiful elegy about him on that occasion. Arnold was too forthright to be tactful in his dealings with boys or indeed with grown-ups, but he always won their respect, and often their love, by his high-minded attitude toward life and its responsibilities. This entry can only summarize the lifelong accomplishments of a beloved teacher and respected scholar. But listening to it, you can get a good idea of the purpose which must have guided Thomas Arnold. Here was a man who valued learning, scholarship, teaching, and personal integrity above all else. What do you value above all else? What would you like to be remembered for? Relax and close your eyes again. Now imagine that you hold in your hands an encyclopedia published in the year 2100. It's a heavy book with a solid feel to it. You can smell the leather binding and feel the crisp new paper as you open it. Find the section that begins with the first letter of your last name. Then turn the pages slowly as you search for the entry that gives you the details of your life. There it is, suddenly, clear as a bell. Your heart beats just a little bit faster as you see your name in bold-faced type. Now you're burning with curiosity. Did they include the most important things about you? Are your most cherished accomplishments in there? Did they understand the purpose behind the things you did? You begin to read the entry to find out. Yes, it's all there. Your birth date and hometown, the schools you went to, where you lived. And then the words that describe your highest achievements, your contributions to society. Savor the words as you read them. Let them form a clear picture in your mind of the kind of person you were and what your purpose in life was. When you've finished reading your own biography, turn off the tape and write down what you just read in the space provided on page 19 of your study guide. Don't leave out a single detail. Make sure you paint a vivid picture of the self-disciplined achiever who worked so long and hard in pursuit of a single purpose that he or she ended up deserving an entry in such a distinguished publication. When you've finished writing your own biography, please turn the tape player back on. Welcome back. Now that you've completed the limitless wishing, wishful imagining, and creative biography exercises, a clear pattern should be emerging. You should now be able to answer the question, what do I, deep in my heart, really want to do? What is my purpose in life? Your fourth step in determining your purpose is writing this, the answer to that all-important question, down. You're now going to compose a personal statement of purpose. But before you do it for yourself, imagine that you're going to do it for someone else, a famous historical figure, for instance. Try George Washington. What do you think his statement of purpose might say? After all, he accomplished a great deal, not the least of which was becoming the first president of the United States. But George Washington never actually intended to become the first president. He was elected because of the kind of purpose he really had. A purpose statement for George Washington might read, "I would like to use all my strength, courage, knowledge, and resources to secure liberty and freedom for all my fellow colonists." George Washington was a great statesman and public servant, but there are other kinds of achievers. Amelia Earhart, for example. Even in childhood, she had a definite purpose in mind. It was not to be a famous woman aviator. That came later, as a natural outcome of what she really wanted to do. Amelia Earhart's purpose statement, composed when she was still a child, said, "When I grow up, I'm going to have adventures and show the world that women can be as heroic as well as men." A purpose statement can be as general as you want it to be. It can speak of heroism, freedom, social changes, adventure. It's meant to act as a focusing tool, not an actual blueprint for achieving it. You'll learn how to do that later in this program. Turn to page 20 in your study guide and compose your personal statement of purpose. Turn off the tape now while you do it. Welcome back again. You've come a long way in this session. You've learned to use limitless wishing, wishful imagining, creative biography, and a statement of purpose to narrow down your options and make a final choice about where you're going to focus your efforts. You've just used this four-part process to make a major decision about what you really want to accomplish and achieve in your life. But you can use it again and again, anytime you feel it's necessary, to aid you in making any kind of decision, from the smallest to the most important. This process works equally well for macro and micro decision-making. Whether you know it or not, you're now well on your way to becoming a self-disciplined achiever. You've learned to use one of your richest natural resources, your intuition and imagination. You've discovered what it is you really want to achieve and have written it down as a statement of purpose. You've laid the solid foundation upon which the power of self-discipline is built. We'd like to congratulate you on what you've already accomplished. In our next session, you're going to learn how role models can inspire and teach you to achieve your lifelong ambition. In Homer's The Odyssey, one of the oldest surviving epic poems in the world, there is a character named Mentor. A wise and practical man, Mentor kept everything running smoothly at home, while Odysseus, the hero of the tale, went off for 10 years to have adventures. Mentor played his role so well and gave such wise and true advice that his name has become part of the English language as a representation of what he stood for. The American Heritage Dictionary defines a mentor as a wise and trusted counselor or teacher. This session is about mentors. Few achievers can ever reach their goals without them. Mentors provide you with the kind of inspiration, motivation, and example that can make the difference between achievement and failure. Mentors help you to develop the belief that anything is possible. And mentors allow you to learn through modeling, that is, emulating the person you'd like to be. In ancient civilizations, mentors were revered. In the 18th century BC, there lived a wise Babylonian king named Hammurabi. One of his greatest achievements was developing and drafting mankind's first set of civilized laws, known today as the Code of Hammurabi. This king was so wise that one of his laws required all men of learning and craftsmanship to pass on their knowledge and skills to the young through examples their students could follow. Hammurabi realized that without modeling, no civilization would last very long. There have been many changes in the past 3,800 years, but one thing has remained the same. Without modeling, learning and achievement are not possible. It is a rare person who can forge a new path in society without consciously or unconsciously imitating someone that came before him. It is a rare artist who develops a new style without first having worked in the style of a master he or she has always admired. But actual skills aren't the only thing you learn through modeling. Values, attitudes, and behaviors are also passed on from mentors to students. And whether you realize it or not, you've been a student of behavior all your life. As an infant, your eager mind quickly grasped everything that was going on around you. You watched and later imitated what your parents, siblings, friends, and teachers were doing. If you had good models of integrity and achievement, most likely you grew up to be an achiever yourself. But if your models reflected apathy or failure, you probably grew up to imitate many of the self-defeating and negative behaviors you witnessed in your early years. Most of us had models who could best be called middle of the road. Your parents may have had specific skills and abilities they were proud of, but fell short of being a good example to you in other ways. An older brother or sister may have possessed exceptional talent in an area where you couldn't possibly compete. As a result, you've probably been instilled with a mixture of negative and positive attitudes about yourself and your abilities to succeed. It's time for you to develop the kind of positive outlook that is critical to developing self-discipline. It's time for you to throw off the cloak of self-doubt and realize that when you acquire self-discipline, you have what it takes to achieve your goal. It's time for you to use that self-discipline to develop the knowledge and skills you need to achieve. And in order to do all those things, it's time for you to find mentors who have already accomplished what you want to achieve. You're no longer a helpless infant who can't pick and choose good models to learn from. As an adult, you have the intelligence and power to go out and find the kind of mentors who will inspire and teach you with examples of their own persistence and positive attitudes and behaviors. By the time we finish this session, you'll know how to find your own personal mentors and use them to their fullest ability. And you'll be able to overcome the negative attitudes and lack of self-discipline that have been holding you back up until now. You'll learn how to identify your own personal role models using historical figures and the people surrounding you today. You'll find out how to actually learn new attitudes and behaviors from them. You'll learn how to use them to create a blueprint for your own actions, starting right now. And more importantly, you'll learn how to draw inspiration from them, the kind of inspiration that empowers your purpose, what you want to achieve, with a sense of possibility. If others have achieved it, then it's possible for me too. How do you go about finding mentors? At first glance, it may seem that there's nobody even remotely accessible to you who has the same kind of hopes and dreams as you do. But high achievers always find a way, and so can you. In our research, we discovered that achievers draw their inspiration from role models in two ways: indirectly, from reading and watching films, and directly, through day-to-day observation and contact. Let's first discuss how self-disciplined achievers indirectly find their mentors. Indirectly, they learn through media portrayals, mostly through the reading of biography and autobiography, reading profiles of achievers in magazines and other periodicals, and watching inspirational films and television programs. You may not be able to meet and talk to George Washington, Charles Lindbergh, Margaret Mead, or Agatha Christie, but each one of them has left behind a legacy of accomplishments that have been covered extensively in print and film. Stop now and think of all the people you've read about, heard about, or seen portrayed in films. Whom did you admire most? Whose story elicited a throb of recognition from you, a feeling that if you could be in anyone's shoes, that was the person you'd like to be? It could even be a fictional character, a great detective or explorer created by an imaginative writer. But there had to be, and still has to be, someone you've always greatly admired and wished you could be like. After he made the film Rocky, Sylvester Stallone talked in an interview about the power of mentors and how his movie worked to inspire millions of people around the world. "I think there's a definite formula in reaching audiences," he said. "Provide them with heroes and heroines who have to pull themselves up from the depths of despair. And as they struggle and claw and finally attain their goal, the audience says, That's the kind of person I want to be. Stallone's character Rocky is the embodiment of a man obsessed with and driven by a vision rich in emotion and purpose, a self-directed achiever who overcame the odds through hard work, effort, persistence, and perseverance. Browse through the New York Times nonfiction bestsellers list this Sunday in your local paper. You'll find that half the books listed are biographies or autobiographies, testaments to people of enormous self-discipline and high achievement. Examples of the power of self-discipline are all around you. You only have to visit your library, your local newsstand, the closest movie theaters, or your local video store for inspiration. Your first step in finding a self-disciplined mentor is to search out books, magazine articles, and movies in which the main characters, fictional or real, have achieved something similar to what you want to achieve. And after studying these people, you can begin to answer the questions. What is it I must do to achieve my goal? What skills do I need to learn? How must I behave? What actions do I need to take? Your mentors will provide you with the answers. The self-disciplined have 3 direct methods of finding role models to learn from and emulate. The first is through personal acquaintances. They may have a friend whose business or personal successes have inspired them to take similar routes to the top. Or perhaps there's a family member who has achieved widespread recognition for outstanding contributions to the community. Because these mentors are close at hand, they can be watched from a front row seat. You can observe their attitudes, behaviors, and thinking patterns. You can notice how they solve problems. You can pay attention to how they behave when confronted with setbacks or victories. You can watch these mentors grapple with the issues of everyday life and the larger issue of achievement in a chosen area. But sometimes there just aren't any people who are that close to you who fit the bill of the self-disciplined achiever. You must find other methods of seeking out real-life mentors. The second way self-disciplined people directly find mentors is through what is commonly known as networking. Networking consists of building relationships with the people who can introduce and expose you to positive role models. Networking is not to be confused with social climbing. The primary motivation of the networker is to learn as much as he can from as many successful people as he possibly can. The main benefit from networking is the quality of the contacts you can establish. Contacts that will create greater opportunities and put you in the mainstream of successful, self-disciplined role models. The third source of finding models directly is apprenticeship, learning directly from a master mentor. The concept of apprenticeship may seem old-fashioned in a world of computer-assisted learning and mass public education, but most of the high achievers we studied apprenticed themselves in some fashion to a mentor who could pass on his or her skills through intentional, personalized learning. Apprenticeship is extraordinarily common in the arts, trade crafts, business, medicine, law, politics, teaching, and sports. Leaf through any encyclopedia and notice how many of the achievers profiled learned their skills under the tutelage of a master mentor. Some people are obvious masters of their craft and easy to pick as mentors, but sometimes it isn't so obvious, especially when it comes to business or professional achievers. How can you choose among several possible candidates? How can you pick the person who is most likely to provide you with the inspiration and example you need? In Session 2, you used an assessment form to compare your own behaviors, habits, and thought patterns against the 10 positive characteristics of the self-disciplined achiever. On page 25 of your study guide, you'll find a similar form that you can use to identify the strengths and weaknesses of prospective mentors, with instructions on how to use it. Put this form to work for you as you seek out that special person who can help you achieve your most cherished dreams and goals. When choosing a mentor of any kind, pay particular attention to how he or she developed the knowledge, skills, and abilities it took to reach his or her goal. Was there special schooling involved, particular reading materials, an apprenticeship with a mentor of his or her own, carefully sought-out teachers? How many hours did your mentor work every day toward achieving his or her goal? Also, pay close attention to your mentor's way of thinking. Be sure to choose someone who handles stress and pressure well. someone who responds to difficult problems by coming up with creative solutions, someone who loves what they do but still finds time for important personal relationships. The highest achievers work hard but are not workaholics. They still find time to enjoy their friends and families. Look for a mentor who has learned not to waste time and who has mastered the art of juggling a heavy schedule while staying calm and in full control. This will be an important trait for you to imitate, and find someone who neither capitulates to everyone around him, nor is so arrogant he won't listen to the opinions of others. You'll want to learn how to listen well, and then make your own decisions. In looking for all these traits, remember that your mentor is still going to be human and have faults. This is one of the most important things you can learn about your role model. In spite of great success, wealth, and the admiration of friends, family, and the community, he or she makes mistakes just like you. Rather than being disappointed in your mentor, you should rejoice over his or her human failings, because those failings mean that anyone can succeed just as they did. If it was possible for an imperfect person with one all-important goal in life to make that goal come true, you can do it as well. At Cybervision Systems, we've developed a number of sports training video cassettes that use a new and revolutionary learning technique. These video cassettes feature some of the world's greatest athletes, highly self-disciplined achievers who have won world championships and Olympic gold medals. And in the casual conversations we've had while working with these athletic stars, each one has revealed that he or she had a mentor whose skills, attitudes, and behavior served as an example of how to achieve. One of the things that struck us during these conversations was the fact that most top athletes were just as intimidated as you and I might be the first time they met their role model heroes, for lack of a better word. The idea that a major league ball player of undisputed talent might be quivering like a school kid in the face of their lifelong hero made us feel pretty normal, actually. I think we all feel a sort of psychological barrier when it comes to measuring ourselves against our role models. But as the athletes we talked to discovered, that barrier can be overcome quickly and easily. Each of them described the eventual realization that came from playing on a team with a personal hero or from riding the same pro circuit. The realization? As Olympic gold medal skier Jean-Claude Killy put it, everybody puts his pants on, one leg at a time. What each of them realized was that they too could easily perform like the role model they idolized. The idols, viewed close up, turned out to be as ordinary as the worshippers. They realized how great an opportunity they had to learn from their hero. Discovering that their idols were human and fallible, they began to believe deep within their hearts that they could equal or even surpass their idols' accomplishments. Though the role models you choose have developed tremendous strengths that have made them successful, they also have many weaknesses. Renowned fiction writer Ray Bradbury, for example, who was first published when he was in his teens, will never win the Monaco Grand Prix, or even a race to the local supermarket. Why? Because he never learned to drive a car, a skill most of us acquired long ago without thinking about it twice. A friend of ours who was independently wealthy, a local politician, a publisher of fine art books, and a world traveler, wears finely crafted boots with all his clothes, even his business suits. Is it part of his personal style? Yes, but his close friends know his secret. He never mastered the bow knot. This much-admired man literally cannot tie his shoes. Recognizing how human and fallible your mentor really is, demystifying your role model, plays an important role in boosting your confidence in your own ability to succeed. If a man who cannot tie his shoes can become a politician, a publisher, and a self-made millionaire, what couldn't you accomplish with the same ambition and drive that got him where he is? This is a man who never let minor shortcomings hold him back. He and 1,000 other mentors will prove to you that you don't have to be perfect to succeed. In fact, you may be amazed to find out that there are a lot of similarities between you and your mentor. People with similar goals often think alike. The only substantial difference, then, between you and your mentor is the kind of self-disciplined effort he or she has applied to achieving a goal. If you apply the same kind of effort, you can be just as successful in achieving your goal. As a matter of fact, you can try on success for size by emulating your mentor's achievements while you're working toward a similar goal. Remember childhood dress-up games, playing pirate with a tinfoil sword and your mother's scarf wrapped around your forehead. Role-playing doesn't work only for children. It can give anyone who's striving to reach a particular goal a template to follow for achieving that goal. Hunter Thompson, who broke new ground in journalism in the 1970s with his gonzo style, picked up much of his technique by imitating one of the greatest writers in the English language, Charles Dickens. Thompson literally sat down and physically copied Dickens by hand, letting his mind and his muscles get used to Dickens' rhythm and style. Hour after hour, he copied Dickens' prose, word for word. And Thompson went on to become a successful and popular contemporary writer. The great 19th century psychologist and philosopher William James contended that if you want to acquire a positive habit or behavior, simply act as if you already have it, and you will. James was aware that the human nervous system is incapable of distinguishing between a physically real experience and a vividly imagined one, which means that once you select your mentor, all you need to do is act just like that person in order to be just like him or her. Remember General Patton? He acted just like Alexander the Great, and he won battle after battle against the Axis. What about Babe Ruth? He imitated Shoeless Joe Jackson and went on to achieve much greater fame than his role model. Or perhaps you've heard of a fictional character named Bunker Bean. Bunker Bean was a timid, weak boy, raised by his parents to think he would always be a failure, and he was. He failed in school, he failed with his friends, he failed in everything he attempted, until one day Bunker Bean ran into a fortune teller who told him he was the reincarnation of Napoleon and was destined to achieve great things. Bunker Bean was shocked out of his usual apathy by this revelation. Going to the library, he took out every book he could find on the legendary Napoleon Bonaparte. He bought posters of Napoleon and hung them up all over his room. And as he studied about the emperor, whom he really believed was his former self, he began to imitate Napoleon's habits, attitudes, and behaviors. Years later, Bunker Bean was a rich and powerful man. He had everything anyone could have asked for. Running into the fortune teller one day, he thanked her for changing his life by telling him about his former self. And to his astonishment, she laughed and told him she had lied to him years before, just to get his money. He wasn't the reincarnation of Napoleon after all. Bunker Bean was crushed. But since he had spent the many years acting like his role model, he found he couldn't shake the habits of success he had acquired. It was then that Bunker Bean realized that everyone is born with the potential to be a great achiever, if they can only believe they are. You don't need a fortune teller to set you on the road to greatness. You do need to find a mentor, study that mentor, realize his or her strengths and weaknesses, and start imitating the behavior that made your mentor the success he or she is today. If you were an actor preparing for a starring role, you'd spend months studying the script, learning your lines and rehearsing your part over and over again until you knew it inside out. Only then would you have the knowledge, skills, and confidence to make a glorious debut. If, as Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage, then finding a mentor is your way of choosing your own starring role. For a while, as you closely observe your mentor and learn the script, you'll be just an understudy. But then, one day, the stage will be yours. Acting as if has remarkable suggestive power. In a book called The Wind Walker, which was made into a powerful film, an aged blind Indian spends his days teaching the ways of warriors. Sitting late at night, reflecting on the day's lesson and the children's reactions to it, he recites a poem to the heavens, part of which goes, "And did you not see the glow of their faces when he called them men, when he called them warriors? And is it not so that we become most quickly the persons we think we are?" And later, this passage appears. He was making the children feel important, that one day they could be important. That was the way of a teacher, of a true man. Once you select your role models and learn about them and from them, you, like the young Indian children, should feel important so that one day you will be important. This power of importance you draw from role models is really the power of possibility. Once you learn about your role models, their strengths and weaknesses, they become real and human to you. You stop worshiping them and begin to believe that you can become like them or even surpass them. Once you make this realization, then your purpose becomes more real, more possible, and the fires of desire, fanned by the sense of possibility, begin to burn deep within your heart. And then, and only then, can you successfully begin the process of working persistently and progressively toward your vision and purpose. We're now reaching the heart of the action section of this program. In this session, you're going to learn how to transform your purpose into sensory-rich, emotion-provoking images of achievement. But before we do, let's quickly review the kinds of actions you've taken so far to begin your journey to achievement. In Session 4, you learned how to determine your purpose, the goal that represents the true desire of your heart and mind. This purpose is so important to you that you're willing to dedicate a great deal of time and energy to achieving it. It gives you a reason for living, and a reason for becoming the kind of self-disciplined achiever who can make it happen. In Session 5, you learned how to identify models of achievement, people who have already attained goals similar to yours. You learned how to turn those models into personal mentors, people who can inspire and teach you to achieve in much the same way they did. You found out how to isolate and identify their talents and habits. You also learned to use your mentors to create a strong sense of possibility, a feeling that if they could do it, so can you. With a clearly defined purpose and a strong feeling of "it's possible for me," you have already broken through the chains of failure that shackle and bind more than 90% of mankind. Most people don't have a purpose. They don't think that they're capable of achieving anything worthwhile. Now you're ready to take another giant step on the road to achievement. In this session, you're going to learn just how to translate your purpose into an emotion-provoking vision. This vision will become so real in your imagination that it will inspire and motivate you to work towards it every minute of every day until you make it come true. What we call your vision of success is a clear, sensory-rich, highly detailed mental picture of what you want to achieve and the rewards you'll experience as a result of its achievement. When this vision of success is linked to your purpose and a strong sense of possibility, it will, like a hot branding iron, burn itself deep into every fiber of your being. Not only will you become obsessed with this vision, but you'll also develop a sense of deep belief in your ability to achieve it. Your vision allows you to make a quantum leap from the sense of possibility to the sure-fired conviction that I know I can do it. You're about to learn a simple but powerful 4-step process for transforming your purpose into a sensory-rich goal. Once you have done that, we're going to give you 5 easy-to-use guidelines that will help implant the goal deep into your mind and nervous system. It will then become a permanent part of you and serve as the fuel that fires your emotion and incites you to purposeful action. Let's now begin to learn about the process of sensory goal setting and how you can use sensory goals to develop what we call a magnificent obsession, a burning desire to achieve your purpose. The first step you must take is to translate the statement of purpose you developed in Session 4 into what we call a sensory goal statement. As you recall, your statement of purpose was a general statement of what you would like to achieve. Your sensory goal statement is going to be much more specific. There are 3 main elements to the statement you are now going to write. First, it must be result-oriented. It must focus primarily on what you want to get out of your achievement. Second, your sensory goal statement must be time-specific. You must determine a point in time when your goal will be achieved. And third, it must be measurable. You must specify a criterion that lets you know when your accomplishment is complete. If you want to become a doctor, for example, Your criterion might be finishing your internship and setting up your own practice. If you want to start your own business, your criterion of success might be the day you move into your own offices or hire your first employee.